concessions are, when they expire, and when the next round is going to come up?
It's not on our website, is it?
It would be on the National Park Service website, nps.gov, and if you go under the tab of commercial services, it lists the existing concessions contracts that are up.
And the answer is that all of the concessions are on the National Park Service website under concessions. Are you able to sort it, to segregate it to St. John so that they can see?
They are separated by region and national.
So they're separated by regions, and then you could see which are the ones, and it will be the contract, so you could see when the end date was. And do you open up a bidding process at now I know, because in our town hall yesterday on St. Croix, we knew they gave us a date when the concessions were gonna open, and when the bidding was gonna be done. Do you have that date for
No,
St.
we're
John?
still a ways out from that,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
whenever we do it, we will put out a press release to the public.
Yep.
And it would be on Fed is absence.
So what I've asked the acting superintendent on St. Croix, and I know I've talked to Randy about, is when these announcements come, I know that the national park are not allowed under federal rules to do paid advertising for them. If you would let us know and put us on your press release list so that we, my office, can put those out to the general public so that people are aware before the date ends. Because people are not going to spend their time scrolling through USA Jobs to find out if a job opening has finally come up, and then it may close before we know, unless you give us ample opportunity to get that information disseminated out. Randy,
If I could add as well, a great partnership we had with the Congresswoman's office in St. Croix. St. Croix has 4 concession operations that are set to expire and going out to bid. So working with the office and recognizing that it's confusing to put in for commercial use authorizations, concessions, apply for a special use permit. So we brought specialists in from Miami to come and do public training on how you apply for those government bids. And it was a 2-day class held between 5 and I think they went to 8 o'clock back to back. And so we will be offering that here on this island as well. And we'll try and work out some dates, but we will get this done before any new concessions comes out. Hopefully maybe in December, January sometime. But that training will be coming here too.
Yes, sir.
Somewhere is a beautiful beach, and it's one of the top beautiful beaches in the world.
Yes.
And in previous, we had lifeguards on the beach, and you said that we have 1,000 people sometimes travel that beach a year. When we intend to run lifeguards?
So lifeguards have always been a problem for the park. Rick, our chief ranger, found a letter from 1980 saying how much problems it was having hiring lifeguards, keeping lifeguards. We're right now not in a position of having lifeguards. We're not there. So we're investigating options about could it be parts of the new concessions contract that they provide lifeguard services for Trump. That's a possibility. So, you know, we're looking at lots of options. We've not ruled it out. We're just not in a position right now to be able to have lifeguards at Trump.
Can I ask why?
We don't have the money.
So you said you don't have the money.
Right.
And we had like trick cushion, hundreds of people walking on the beach free, and you don't have money?
Well, there's
How about, I'm kind of finished, you guys used to have people to charge. You don't have money, but you're letting all these people walking free.
well, we're not actually collecting any fees right now. We're not any fee collectors either.
Not only that, you know, I operate a taxi service. We making almost nothing since the hurricane, and the guy shake us down for $75, and you have all these people walking in free. I mean, like, what's up with that?
You have a personal youth authorization, and it costs $75 a year for you to do that.
So, and how much it costs you to maintain the beach for the people to walk in free, and you don't have money? Somebody drowned yesterday, somebody drowned a couple weeks ago, you don't have money. How many people have to drown before you guys find money to save somebody?
It is an important question. Of course, life, health, safety comes before any financial concerns. It is a truism. we are looking at all kinds of options to do partnerships with the government, to provide certain types of percentage of training with the government, to provide that kind of workforce and different grant opportunities. We are in the, we just had a meeting today to talk to the cruise ships, to see if the cruise ships, when they bring these heavy ships over, that they bring their lifeguard personnel with them to the beaches. The lighthouse safety doesn't start and end at Trunk Bay. We have lighthouse safeties all over the island. So when we talk about spending dollars and the effects of those dollars, we have to look at the island wide. If we focus just on Trunk and we forget about our communities all across the island, meaning if I hire 3 lifeguards, right, to run one shift, you know, throughout the week, I just lost a potential law enforcement ranger who has EMS skills. Every one of our law enforcement rangers is a medic. So would I rather have another medic patrolling and being able to run code to all parts of the island? That's a more cost-effective solution than really focusing on Trunk Bay. We do think we can leverage our partners to provide that safety aspect to Trunk Bay as an isolated solution. But we need a solution for island-wide, and that's really where we're hovering 10,000 feet, looking at the risks and gains island-wide.
But you still should have someone there collecting graffiti on the beach, just as gentleman said. I mean, there's many officers patrolling the National Park dock to see what's going on there all the time. Why isn't there someone collecting graffiti so you guys can make money?
Great question. So we have 3 law enforcement rangers for 24/7 coverage. 3. With the hurricanes, we lost all of our fleet personnel. They have children, they have livelihoods, they lost their homes. So we gave them.
As did many people said.
Absolutely, I'm just giving contract, you asked me a question, I'm giving you context behind it. They made a decision to go work at another national park, that we made sure that we had, give them jobs, and we gave them housing, and that the kids are in school. They all haven't returned, some won't return, like many people from the island. We will start hiring, and when he talks about hiring, these are the things where we're looking for the community to fill these voids, and that is the fee portion of it. We can't collect fees for extended amenity if we don't have a good running bathroom, if we don't have food services. You know, that's gotta come before even charging fees.
Do you have a timeline on that?
We do, yes. Exciting portion, and I don't wanna take your thunder if it's okay.
That's fine.
The exciting portion is we are making a decision of the National Park Service to provide food opportunities on Cinnamon Bay and on Trunk Bay. And we're also moving forward to make sure that we, the National Park Service, take the lead in providing primitive camping in Cinnamon Bay. We have crews on the ground right now, 10 personnel, that are doing the debris removal in Cinnamon Bay. We're hopeful in 3 weeks that that's accomplished and you start seeing Cinnamon Bay move back to where it was.
I'd like to quickly go back to your comment about crews providing the lifeguards for the beach. I'm your major tour operator for the cruise lines, and the last 2 deaths that you've had on Trunk Bay have not been crews passing, or haven't been on tour. They've been people that have gone to Trunk Bay on their own, not on the crew. And it's been my staff and some other staff down there that have had to take over and do these life-saving procedures on these people. You know, and I understand there's a cost, but there's also a human cost. I mean, these are lives we're talking about, not monetary issues. Right? So, to put the lifeguards on the cruise staff, we're only there for a couple hours a day, whereas the park is going to be open for 8 hours a day.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
you know,
It is not the 100% solution, but it is a percentage of the solution. It's got to be a multifaceted approach to fill these gaps. Where we did have our latest fatality on Trunk Bay wasn't even where our lifeguard would have been, so it wouldn't have even made a sense. That's what I mean. We can't patrol all the beachfront. We have, you know, it's just impossible. So to see that the end all be all is getting lifeguards on the beach, I'm telling you, it's not. We need to have a multifaceted approach. You're a percentage of that, and we really appreciate the work that you do. But we do think that there could be more partners and and more interest, whether we open up a CUA to provide that beach opportunity and get a percentage of the collecting of the fees. We're looking at multiple solutions. Thank you.
I'm just gonna cut you off because I really want to say that about the cruise. Being a person on the ground as a lifeguard at one point, the majority of people that we pulled out of the water were from cruise boats. So the big issue that I did want to bring up that might help facet that is the communication from when people from cruise boats and tours and everything says you can go out and swim now. And realistically, people can't. So we need to work on our marketing as a community, not worry about sales for tours, but talk about the actual safety as well. So the communication across the board for all of our beaches need to say, you should know how to swim before you go in water over your head. And that's actually gonna help a lot of the fatalities. People are going to die in the water. That's gonna happen on Trump or anywhere else. It's gonna happen on Trump because you have a high concentration of people go. So how do we get that message out to our visitors that say they need to be responsible for their safety as well? We cannot protect them in every facet, but we can help you figure out what you need by having tours of teaching people how to swim or snorkel, or every element of that facet is media solution, is that every person has that training. The lifeguard training here is not easy to get. And if you guys wanna talk about that and have solutions, I'm available, we can talk about the certification for lifeguards. It's not an easy thing to do.
Thank you for your hands-on look at it, so I appreciate that. And she's correct. Our only person that did lifeguard certification is gone. She left. We don't have anybody in the islands here to do lifeguard training. So that's a gap, a percentage of the solution that we need to fix. Now, the National Park Service can't do it alone because we don't have all the beaches. It is a partnership with the government, with the Congresswoman's office, and I do think that we can get there if we just put our brains together, like you said, and look at where all of our potentials are. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Steve.
I think we can have one question and then we'll move to the next topic.
Are you saying, since you're offering concessions at Camille and Cinnamon, that if you are awarded a concession agreement, that you will be dealing with the national park, or will you be dealing with Camille Bay or some other faction of government?
Is that for Cinnamon or Camille? I'm sorry.
Any one of them. Like, if I go to Trump Bay and say I am awarded a concession, do I report to Camille Bay, the entity, or am I?
But Camille Bay is only responsible for the land that Camille Bay is leasing. So if you have a concession for Trunk Bay, then you would be reporting to the National Park Service.
Okay, cause like, at one time Camille Bay had the.
Right.
This
But they-
concession that was
yeah,
separate.
It's a different type of
Separate.
authority, but it is a good point, yeah. The RUE is different than what, at Camille is different than the lease at, the concession contract at Cinnamon Bay, so it is two separate things, thank you.
And we have so many other topics, because you can also talk with them, because he has about 5 other things that he needs to go through before we do Camille. So can we go to the next one, please?
So,
He'll be around a while after if you have some other questions.
I want to talk a little bit about infrastructure. Recently, the park approved, actually National Park Service approved the environmental assessment for rebuilding some of our houses and some of our office space that was destroyed in Irma. This is going to be up on Lynn Point, and we have approved, actually a team showing up November 13th. They're a national team coming down to start looking and see what they need to do to get us the funding. Funding exists, just get us all the work orders, all the contracts and things, and start getting things accomplished so that we can start rebuilding. What's going to be really important about this rebuilding of office space is our artifact collection. The heritage of St. John is in a building right now that's underneath the building that's going to be torn down. So that'll be stored in a new hurricane-proof, or very hurricane strong building that will be able to protect those priceless artifacts. Our heritage for thousands of years will be in this building, and that will be secure. So we don't have to worry so much about it going away or being destroyed in a hurricane. So we'll have some new houses going up for our staff. We'll have new office space for our resource management, and they'll be, and that's also going to include coastline restoration, projects for the road. North Shore Road is damaged in several parts, and now we'll be also working on that. So this you're going to start seeing a lot more projects going on in the national park. There'll be very exciting times, really cool, and then we'll be back up to where we were, and hopefully everything will be better than it was before.
Is that the only infrastructure thing?
For now. Yeah, well, one more. Maho Beach. Joe, our president of our friends group, we had Maho Beach Pavilions. Maho Beach very popular with everybody, with local St. Jonians. And so we're going to be putting up 3 instead of 2 pavilions on that area. They'll be light on the landscape. They're not going to be heavy duty like the ones were before. So these will be cheaper to build, cheaper to rebuild in case you have another hurricane. And so those will be going in very shortly. And so we'll have shade structures at Maho Beach, and we'll have 3 of those pavilions, and we're looking forward to that. Yes.
I believe I was in a meeting that you all held about a month and a half ago about those pavilions, and the majority of the people had some questions. So when was it voted on that you were accepting the pavilions?
Accepting the.
You just said you're putting the pavilion, so when was it accepted? Because when we were having the discussion, people had concerns. Since the water table has changed at Maho Bay, the water is more closer to the street than it usually was.
Mhm.
How are these, you're
So-
saying that you're putting these things in?
Yeah, so they're
when-
very light on the landscape. They're just basically a post of wood in the sand. So it's not it's designed for planned obsolescence.
Okay, when did you agree to put these in? Because like I said, the last meeting that I was to, it was up in the air. It was at your national park headquarters in Coos Bay.
Oh yeah, okay. That meeting was in July. Yes. Okay. So it was in August that we decided that we were going to do that.
Okay, so even though you said you're going to come to the community and ask the community what they wanted, that was never vented, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
right. And I also wasn't at that meeting either, so I was home. So.
I can hit that real quick. So what came out of the community was that they didn't want the concrete posts. So we went with, and there was debate back and forth. But what we ultimately decided to go with, and the input from the Friends group, is that we didn't put concrete, that it's going to be just a raw treated post instead of using concrete infrastructure. So that came right from that meeting in the community. So.
So with the watch that comes up in that area with storm storage,
Right.
storm surge, and you just putting what you just described to me, I have my questions in reference to that still.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at the different studies, we really don't know what the landscape of that is. As everybody knows, we lost, I think it was 15 feet of beach over there. And so we really don't know if the beach is going to self-rejuvenate itself and start putting more beach back on the beach, or if it gets worse. So we did make a calculated decision with the Friends group to say, if we do lose beach, let's lose infrastructure cheaply, but we need to provide something for the community in the meantime.
So Randy, you've made the more pavilion area. Will there be a corresponding number of places to park your car for the extra pavilion?
Yes, we have a brand new parking lot over there.
In front of the pavilions, if you're gonna have an
No,
extra.
no,
we will not. No, unfortunately, you're gonna have to walk from there to there.
In the parking area than we had before, so thank you very much. We lost about 15 parking places with your new design.
Okay.
Well done.
You mentioned a lot of initiatives, and you keep saying we're gonna do them. What's the timeline? What's the time frame for that?
We think that everything to be construction to start and all that kind of sort of thing.
Yeah, when?
The date, it's much like the schools for the territory, next 5 years. Next 5 years.
So is there a contractor or have you put the contract out for the person who's gonna build it, or is that
We
gonna
don't
be
have plans.
internally?
We don't have plans yet.
So it's just
Yeah, we're designing.
theoretical that this is what you strategically decided to do.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the beaches, is Canyon owned by the park?
The land is owned by the park,
Okay, that's good to know.
but
The land is owned by the park.
the retained use estate says that Caneel the property, Gary's property, it controls the land. So they have say of what goes on the land, and so the land is owned by the park, but it's not controlled by the park.
Is this for Maho?
No, the name.
You talking about Daniil or Maho?
You're talking about the deal, right? Yeah.
You got me confused, because what I was gonna ask, Canil Bay has 7 of the most beautiful beaches in St. John. Why aren't the people using those beaches? 1 year gone by and the beaches just sit there and local people can't use them. Why?
That's a question for Daniil.
So we're gonna have a discussion with Camille, the owners of Camille, and you can ask him the question about that.
Then Canil Bay own.
Yes, he's here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have that
Wait a
discussion.
minute, Canil Bay own right now?
Yeah.
I thought it was off of bid or something like that. The last time I was there, they were talking about that.
No, that's what people wanted.
Because, I mean, I hate to see, I live here, I was born here, and I gotta go all the way to Maho Bay to find a beach to, and there's some beaches right there watching, I have to pass them to get it. But I can't go to them, not through the land.
Not through the land, but
And
through
not
the by
only
sea.
that, not only that they can't pass through, but if I go and park, it's outrageous, it's so it's prices.
I don't control that has nothing to do with that, so. Yes.
During the discussion, and maybe someone in the audience, is, when we're talking about Maho, is this the same? I know that there was some discussion that, people from St. John wanted an amphitheater. Is this in that same area that we had the discussions about the national parks doing? And where's that one?
That's at Cinnamon.
Cinnamon, right, Cinnamon, right.
Have you looked into that? Because this was something that the community had used in the past to potentially have, outdoor theater and things like that.
And we have had a discussion with the management team, walking around the site, trying to figure out the best spot. We think we figured out an even better spot for us down by the beach, rather than the parking lot where it is now.
So you are considering.
Oh, yeah.
So that's when I ask when you have
But
infrastructure
that's still
reports.
way for stage.
But if you're planning it, we wanna be a part of the plan, so we need to know what it is that you're thinking about planning, so that we can provide our input, as opposed to you planning it and then telling us that it's done after you've made the decision. So are there other things that you're planning that are just in the planning stage, so that if people of St. John would like to do reports or write or give you their thoughts or comments, they can have an opportunity to think about it, to then contact my office or your office on what those might be?
As far as public structures or areas, not enough. We're working on a new maintenance building, but that's not enough. I can't think of anything. You guys think of anything else?
No, during our monthly, or bi-monthly town meetings, we bring up what we're going to be doing park-wide, anything that's gonna be a new.
In your monthly town meetings.
Right, and we held in the Visitor Center, it's next Thursday.
Question.
Yes,
Is the big pond that's in the back there by Maho Bay, is that in the hands of the park or
No.
is it private?
it's privately owned.
Don't you feel perhaps that's why the ocean is trying to come into?
Very well could be. It gets in that pond.
The pond is a duck sanctuary during the winter months, you go, the ducks
Yeah,
are
we were just
there.
thinking Francis Bay.
No, we're
Maho Bay
Maho
has a
too.
big pond, big
It's
pond.
not as big.
Big pond in the back, there's a huge pond. Maho Bay does.
Can you clarify for me, are you having your meetings conjoined with the St. John Community Foundation?
We talk about what we do. We not manage meetings every once a month, yes.
Okay, I think that needs to be separated and apart, because some people do not go to the St. John Community Foundation meetings, like myself. And if you had your meeting, I would attend your meeting.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I wasn't clear, what is the status of the Cinnamon Bay concession? You said that you've got plans for Cinnamon, the work being done and.
Well, right now, we have a crew in there cleaning the campground.
What's the status of the concession?
That is, actually being decided at a much higher level than the park. That's at the Washington level.
I apologize, I'll get that, and I should have been more thorough. So we literally have weekly meetings on, the concession contract, and it looks like the current owner wants to, sell that concession contract, and so we are having those discussions right now. And because the insurance involved and all the legalities around it, that is being handled by their lawyers and the Department of the Interior's lawyers. But the park has made a decision that we're not gonna wait for the lawyers to make a decision. We want to go in, we're using our resources to clean out Cinnamon Bay so that we can have primitive camping there again and have some,
Can that happen while there's still a concession in effect, and there is a
there
provision in
is
the
a concession still in effect right
There
now.
is a provision in the concession for if damages are more than $1 million, it reverts to the National Park Service control in terms of decision-making at that point.
There is
And
a
there's
clause in
several-
there, and that's
there's several
exactly what the lawyers are
Very simple
looking at.
points to that contract.
Absolutely. The lawyers are looking into that, but our portion here is we are moving forward. You will have, opportunities for food on the beaches, and camping, this next season, starting in November. You will have that at Cinnamon Bay, while they're working out all these legalities, so.
Can I bid on the concession?
Can you bid on the concession? It's not out for bid right now, but if you wanna talk to the current owner, of Cinnamon Bay and solicit your purchasing of it, absolutely.
But I thought you're in charge of the concession, not them.
They own the concession contract, and they are the ones that will sell the concession contract. So if they own it for, I forget how many more years, they will sell how many years they have left to a new buyer. And if you're that new buyer, then reach out to them and see if you have an opportunity to purchase it.
So even though the cost is over $1 million worth of damage, you become the owner of the concession, that doesn't count?
No.
No, I never said anything about $1 million, the gentleman did.
The contract, the concession contract says that.
Concession contract does.
There's more than $1 million damage there, if that's
Yes,
what you're saying.
and that's it, if the damage is more than $1 million,
Uh-huh.
the different provision applies in terms of the National Park Service is in the lead, not concessionaire, it says it.
We are in the lead, we are having those legal conversations right now. But we have not defaulted, if you're asking if we've defaulted on the concession contract, we haven't. We
No, that's
are.
what they
we-
have, the concessionaire.
Yeah. We are letting them move through their process so that they can sell it, so that we can get up and running faster. Than going through a whole litigious thing of canceling a contract and then
Park
reopening
Service
it to
is
bid.
doing the cleanup work that they're responsible for as part of
You're right,
the concession contract.
you're right, they are part of it, but do I wait for them, or do you want Cinnamon Bay open? That was the decision that we had to make in the park, and we said, we want it back open, and we decided to take the lead on opening that. Thank you.
Okay, one of the things.
I'm sorry, any more questions before we move on to the
I
next?
have one. You say you'll build sheds for different beaches, correct?
From Maho.
For Maho, is there anything gonna go out to Francis Bay? At all?
No, just Maho, those,
Just
so
Maho?
we're replacing the 2 structures with 3.
Although the Friends Group did repair the boardwalk.
Right.
So nothing's going out to Francis Bay at all?
I know it would be cool. I agree. It's my favorite.
So, one thing that has been mentioned time and time again is South Shore Road that doesn't exist at this current time. That's an agreement that needs to be worked out between the territory and the park. It'll take a long time, it won't happen right away. But we're willing to have a discussion, perhaps you could
I
facilitate.
think that both Randy and I have a discussion with the regional director. We think that we have some options for opening up a second access, in and out of Coral Bay, so that individuals that live there, that community is not cut off, particularly if there's an emergency. There's part of the road that has already been built up, it's gravel. It may not be for daily access initially, but it will definitely be available if it's needed for emergencies, whether they be medical or if there's a disaster. Randy, if you wanted to add anything?
Yeah, and kudos really to the Congresswoman and her team on this. We've been nonstop talking about additional access out of Coral Bay. There are 2 options, as many people know. There's Lamisher all the way back up, and then there's the current road that we have that we do see a lot of people operate on that road, even though it's not open. One of the things that we recognize after the hurricanes is oftentimes the National Park Service, at least on that side, are the only ones that can get to Coral Bay. And admittedly, where the Park Service, we didn't do a good job, I didn't do a good job, was to make sure that we immediately sent resources over there to check on the community. And we do have to create a community plan where the National Park Service is involved to say, even though it's not within the park, there is a responsibility on behalf of the National Park Service to check on our families over there. And so we will create a better plan to make sure that that is accomplished. Yes.
Exactly where is that road you're talking about going to be established?
You have the map? Because this is always in debate. Everyone's got a different idea on the road. So, currently, right now, and I don't know if anybody has great vision. I know this is going to be very difficult. Yeah. But currently, right now, thank you, sir. If I can orient myself upside down here. Absolutely. All right, so here we go. So currently, right now, we do have this road paved, and it is open, and it brings you back up. Yeah, the Bordeaux Road. And so a lot of people talk to us about the Bordeaux Road, and when we're having conversations, we think we're talking about Bordeaux, but then other people are talking about Lamisher. Now, Lamisher comes, you know, of course, from here, comes all the way up, and then it cuts through the park. Now, as anybody's driven on Lamisher knows that Lamisher gets underwater constantly. And to be able to build Lamisher as a potential road out of Coral Bay all the way up, it's nearly impossible. You don't think so? Yeah. We will study it. I'm just giving my opinion. I mean, I looked at it. It's gonna be costly. It's gonna take some time. We do have to do environmental assessments and evaluations. But in the meantime, we do need to come up with a good community search and rescue plan, and at least another way. And Bordeaux right now is our patented way.
I think what my discussion with them has been, I know that the governor is talking with the national parks about the area that is isolated, right? The one that you were talking about that's over
right here.
Over here.
Yep.
But
South Point area. Right.
right. But what we know that there's part of a road up here that's already paved. And I'm just concerned immediately about having something that will not take biological, environmental studies. That's gonna take 3-5 years. Dealing with the Department of Interior. We cannot wait 3 to 5 years for all of those to be done, to get that road done, which may be the best road. In the interim period, we need to have this one that is part gravel already, that can be a way for the people of Coral Bay that can have something. Is it the perfect road? In the short term, no. But for the short term, I think that's the best option, and continue to work with the local government and the national parks to find funding to, if we want to build a road on something that goes underwater for long term later on.
I completely agree.
Which road? Bordeaux Mountain Road is paved all the way. So maybe you guys haven't been out there, but it has been 100% paved.
Yep.
So what's the partial road you're talking about?
It is Bordeaux. We did do a huge paving project, but even when you drive on some of the paving, you do go against gravel areas that is washed out. Even though that's paved underneath, yeah.
The problem is that the steepness of the grade, not one truck can make it up and down the hill. So in case of an emergency, there will not be anything other than a car can get through. The ambulances can't make it, the fire trucks can't make it, the water trucks can't make it. Nobody can make it up and down the whole hill because it's too steep and it's too curvy. And it is 100% paved from start to finish. That was done last year. The problem is that trucks cannot use it at all. It is completely dangerous. So even that is not gonna work in an emergency.
And another thing is, how much miles is it? If you have an emergency and somebody needs it, how much miles is it? I think that road that's going through, Lamishon to the other way, is shorter. It's shorter. We need a shorter road. We don't need another left.
So what do you mean by shorter road?
Yeah, Fish Bay. It's like reach Cruising in no time.
There's another
federal road there.
Is there, okay, it's not in the map. So, it is good conversation, we need to evaluate it more, we need more meetings like this, but we need to create a task force with the governor's office, with the congresswoman's office, to really, enough is enough, we need to figure out how to make sure we have patented, EMS and fire to those locations. So, we agree with you, we want to be the solution, not the problem, we're here, we're excited about it, and we want this solution just like the rest of the kids.
Okay, may I say something sometime, and I would agree that I don't I've been.
Just, can you let her speak and then you can speak out?
Okay, go ahead, we on St. John, we have federal road numbers, so let's use them. Road 108 takes you from the corner of the 10 that heads east and west, and it brings you in through Bordeaux, and it takes you down into Coral Bay at Route 107, that's where it intersects. Route 107 takes you on the south side of St. John. It stops basically drivable at the bottom of Rami Shore Hill, where you go to Bears. We need to reopen 107 that goes up and intersect with Route 108 in Bordeaux, known as the Bordeaux Mountain Trail. It's a public road. It's a public road. Look at the map, it's a public road. It needs to be reopened, because that gives South Shore now a way of getting to Coos Bay via Bordeaux Mountain if something happens in Coral Bay. Also, we need to go back to La Michelle through Reef Bay, through Fish Bay. That must be open.
And so, did you know the numbers for those roads?
There's no road, route for Fish Bay right now, but that's the other route that some lady was referencing that takes you through, you get you to Fish Bay into Coos Bay on the southwestern side of St. John. It doesn't have a public road up there, it hasn't been used for a long time. But you need to reopen 107. This is where I'm going to ask you about 107. My family have property on both sides of that road. It needs to be reopened because we intend to be able to use it, and we want it reopened. Also, when you look at in Coral Bay, because you got to think that if you are looking at the roads now, all the landslides that are going down, we need to have a route out of Coral Bay which will take you back to the north, Johnny Horn's Road. That one used to be a public road also. So we are looking to get our roads reopened because of how things are changing on our island. So we need you to work with the local government. There is or was a road commission that was held several times ago. They have a report. They suggested all the roads that need to be reopened. These are roads that I have just spoken about. And they gave you a priority as to which should be done first. Please get that.
Do you know who commissioned that report?
The last name is out of Grantsville. I'm not too sure of the last name, but they have already done a study and suggested what roads are best to be open. And they have the South Shore Road going into Fish Bay, they have Road 107, and they have the King Hill Road also being reopened. So these things have been done already, so I'm not looking at it and then working with the local community to really make this place accessible to the people who live here. Thank you.
I completely agree with you.
So for that, I just want to let the people of the community know, when you're talking about partnering with the local government, that part of the funding that we received in this last appropriation in Congress for federal highways and the highways, the cap was removed in terms of the amount of money. So there is, just so you all can advocate at the local government level, there is local funding related to federal roads as well. Okay, so the local government does have the funding right now if they were going to partner with the national parks to do some of this road work. And now is the time that should be done. And part of that was related to federal highways emergency road work. So this seems to me to be the appropriate use of that fund.
And we are open to all ideas. I mean, we want this to happen. So as we get partnerships, we will make it happen for sure. Absolutely.
And then
just quickly, families are landlocked.
Yeah.
Many families are landlocked down in the Bon Esperance area. You need to really get together with family members. You need to work with the government and see where the roads were years ago and so forth. And we have been actually turned away from using those roads by the park. I remember having to write the park and say, it took you 2 days to put up that gate. I give you 4 to take it down.
God is my living witness, and in 4 days they took it down. Because you know that you know. And you know, people just come in and they do what they want to do. They don't contact any family members who may have some understanding of what used to be. There are many graves down there. There are ruins galore. There are hundreds of acres owned by the family, but we can't reach it. You have to pay taxes on it. But the park put you know, I'm talking about a road that goes down from Adrian. I mean, off of the road. Esperance, I'm talking
So
about Esperance.
I completely agree, nobody should be locked out of their property, nobody. We just have to make sure that when we make these decisions to open a roadway or reopen a roadway, that it is done legally, you know, and so as long as there's not some legal, compliance issue, we want that. We want you to have access to your property. We just gotta make sure that we actually, so what I've experienced is we get, a lot of this stuff from the public, and then we say, come chat with us, let's do this and do that, and then it kind of fades out. We just always constantly have things moving about in our lives. And so I would say, let's get a meeting together, let's sit down and really figure out that solution. Like the task force, let's just not talk about it. We need to really create a task force to make sure Coral Bay residents are protected. We can no longer just keep talking about this. If anything we've learned during the hurricanes, it's unacceptable. People were really, it was unacceptable for a whole community to be locked out for weeks at a time. And we gotta come up with a solution and not just talk about it. Yes, ma'am, sorry about that.
I had a problem years ago. The Commissioner of Public Works then got involved. An attorney from the federal government, the National Park, was sent from Washington, D.C., came and met, and there are a lot of problems with lands having to do with the park. The park does not own what they think they own, okay? And they were sold some 600 acres down in the Reef Bay section by the older folks. And when they presented themselves, they presented a map, a deed for 600 acres, but the map reflected 900 acres. The 300 acres are still yet sitting there. If you go up to the Lieutenant Governor's office, check the records, you would find it is since then it belongs to the family. But we really need to work together and work with those who have the, instead of just thinking that the federal government could come in and just do what they want. I'm not with that. So when I asked them, you have a deed for 600 acres, but you have a map showing that you have 900 acres. Where did you get it from? The little guy was big like this, a little attorney, and he got huffed and puffed, and he walked out the door. And that was the end of that meeting, because it was discovered that he was, fraudulent in what he was trying to say and do. But anyway, we need to work together.
I couldn't agree more.
We have issues. And you can only have peace if you work as a team with the betterment of everybody involved. So be blessed.
I completely agree with you, absolutely.
Sir?
I agree with you that we need to put our heads together. For more than 60 years, I have been going to the house, 2024 was can't find the body, and they came in. And recently, when I had the last house, the house came before the last. My friend was going to repair or put up the bathhouses and the toilets and everything else. Many times I have gone to the park and complained. You know what I was complaining about? You are in the water, but the center of the toilet is driving you out of the water. And up and out the toilet is a big toilet. Partners has a running water, but Trumpet has a running. But what I'm saying is, I spoke to the guy who was building the building, and he told me, you see, he spoke to them, but he don't know anything, he has to go after the plan. The plan was drawn by somebody in the United States who never been in St. John. Right now, if you go, you have to pay to have a picnic or something over there. And if you're having a picnic and a shower rain comes, you know what happens? The water runs right down the floor because the floor is lower than the land. They did something to one place when we were there, they put a wall. But then when they put a wall, they take out here, from 2 feet from the wall, the roof drops the water right down on the floor. No spouting. There was a system there. The pipes and all things run transferred by roof. They dug out that system, broke it up and put a 1,000-gallon tank. Never hooked that one for years now.
There were questions related to the roads, and that's why we asked for an update on the roads. There were questions related to infrastructure. There was questions related to, the youth, the YCC, which has begun again. Last summer was the first time on St. John that had been reinstituted after a number of years. I understand that this summer again, it was in place. We're just gonna move on to job announcements, and that's what was gonna be the next topic, okay?
Can I just ask one question before you move on, since this whole issue with the bathroom? Why can't we modernize those areas at Maho Bay and others? But I feel very embarrassed to have tourists coming to our island and having those type of toilets. Can we modernize those, and is there any plans to do that?
So, one of the projects for the hurricane was to rebuild bathrooms. So, I don't know where it sits on the structure list, I don't know how far down it is. One of the projects is to rebuild the bathrooms in Annenberg, so that will be happening.
How modern the bathroom?
Well, more modern than what it got now.
Randy, can I ask a question? There are so many questions coming up there. Plethora of knowledge these people have local. How about you either write before you leave today, ask them to come and sign up with their name, email address.
We have
Then
all of that.
you can try to do that.
I mean,
in
well,
the task force.
we have people who are, if you are interested, we have a sign-up list. What we'll do is we'll send out, a summary to the people who have signed up of what has happened in the meeting. And then if you are interested, you can email our office back if you would like to have an additional discussion in a smaller setting with, the Caribbean superintendent to have a discussion about this, okay?
I'm sorry,
And
this is silly. We did this last year, Randy. We sat here with the same questions, with the same conversations, with the same level of knowledge, with your same remarks about, yes, we need to work together. And yes, we need to get the information from the local people. And yes, we need to talk about this. And yet, you have gone ahead discussing roads with Stacey. Neither one of you know anything about the board or not. Don't know anything about the divisions, but you have been having conversations.
he had a conversation with the Congresswoman, and the conversation that he had with me was in preparation for this meeting to ask him what has been decided. If there have been decisions, because I understand that, a month or so ago, this group also, and individuals on St. John, had a discussion with, the national parks and with the governor about those same roads, correct?
But then he keeps asking us to put together a task force.
Right.
For us
Right.
to do this, and we're doing it, but they're not keeping up on their end to do what it is that they're
Yes,
promising to do.
hence the federal bureaucracy.
Let me add.
So what is happening on your end and on our end, because we're doing on our end what we need to do, having
Now
these
you wanna
meetings
know
in
what
front of
will
y'all
happen if you put
and
the
address it,
day out.
and then you guys drop the ball in the long run. So what are you guys gonna do to fix that problem?
Okay, let me respond. So, you're right, we have not been 100% successful. It's true, we haven't been, and nor will I ever be. If you hold me at 100% successful at everything we've talked about in here, your next meeting, you're gonna be yelling at me. It's facts. We had huge hurricanes. I had family lives we had to distribute. Let me finish, can I finish?
Has been in place before the storms.
Let me
So
finish, please.
we're here readdressing it again, telling you the same thing again, just like Pam is saying. And then again, we're probably gonna have to do this again before you guys eat. And then you can't even give us answers in regards to a timeline when anything is going to be done. So do you understand the frustrations that's being held in there?
Absolutely. We've had a lot of successes. And just to say that some of the things that you're bringing up now voids all those successes is unfair. It just frankly is unfair. Are we perfect? Of course we're not. Are we caught in federal bureaucracy? Of course we are. But I'm telling you right now, if you do what the Congresswoman says and put your name and say, I want to create a task force, I guarantee she will hold us accountable to create a task force.
I was on your task force and you never called us back for another meeting.
What task force is that?
The one that we met at the national park,
Right.
every month or so, and then that all of a sudden stopped and fell apart.
Because I got an email from your chairperson saying they no longer want to be the chairperson and they're disbanding the task force.
No, I didn't say I was disbanding it. I said I was leaving it because of the bureaucracy
Right?
that was happening within the national
Lord,
park.
like without your leadership, it disbanded.
Thank you.
It did. It did.
Thanks for the compliment, but
It did.
the bottom line here is, something.
What do you want me to do now?
I think you need to.
No, I'm just saying,
You can have an attorney.
what happened, the last time we met,
Mm-hmm,
we had Stan here,
mm-hmm,
we had Randy here,
right,
we had yourself here.
right,
We gave you guys a list of questions before you came, so you wouldn't come and have this, what we're having now.
right.
Okay? So we gave you a list of questions, we requested maps of St. John.
Yes.
Proof of what the national park thinks they
Yes.
own. We were very specific
Yes,
in what
we
we
were.
were requesting.
Yes.
Mr. Kessler stood up that night and he said he had 4 acres that he was willing to use as a swap for a school for St. John.
Yes.
We had a beautiful discussion that night.
Right.
So, all right, these things were said already. So like I said, everyone is here, these are new faces that I'm seeing, so you're learning new things.
Right.
Instead of rehashing the old,
I
please
understand what
come
you're
with
saying.
the answers to the questions. If you don't have the questions, I have the questions still.
No, I have the questions,
Okay.
and the answers are only the answers that the national park can give you. I can tell them, you need to give me an answer, but the bureaucracy of not just the national park, but the department.
The questions that she's referencing?
Yes, they were here when the questions were asked.
Okay, so.
And you're right, I apologize, we need to answer all those questions, and we have it. You're right, we do need to do that, I apologize.
So
They
why
have-
are you telling us
they have
what to do
hundreds of
when you're not
attorneys.
doing what it is that you say you're going to do?
They have, and that's why it takes so long. They take so long because they have 100
Hold
attorneys.
them responsible. Fire them if they don't work.
I have a very important question. I was talking about jobs. After the hurricane, a lot of the local people, they left against the way they look at things. They want to come back, they want to destroy. So my key question is, what about the jobs and community situation? Is there anyone that could talk about?
Okay, we're gonna move on to that right now.
Please, I
But
think very
before we move on, can we at least get some kind of response in regards to what it is going to be done with the questions that were mentioned, so that we again don't have to continue to spin the same wheel and go nowhere? Can you at least
Absolutely.
have a conclusion to that before we move on to something else?
Absolutely. I will grab those questions again. We will have another town hall, and I will answer every one of those questions.
Within a month or two?
Yes, ma'am. Yep. And we'll have some other updates, but I will answer all those questions, and I apologize.
I don't know if
We
you're
should
gonna-
have answered those from the very beginning, and we have it.
And please come with some timelines so that we have real answers and not just the political stuff that you're giving us tonight.
Randy, I just wanted to add there are other members of that task force present, and we stood and still stand ready to continue what we started.
Yep, and I didn't notice you were in the room, but
So that-
we actually talked quite a bit. There are people in the community, call me on my personal cell, text me, I mean,
It's not my job, Randy. You want information from us, we're here. You said, give us your phone number, you know my phone number, call me,
trying to
I'll
move it along.
show you.
So as you can see, there was this movement after the meeting on those questions, sir, with a task force that was created. So, but if everyone wants another task force, and this has been my issue, is that the bureaucracy of the Department of Interior makes the solutions for a park like St. John very difficult. And when you are talking about a road that you want fixed, and you need it fixed for emergency services, and it's taking us 2, 3, 5 years for that.
It's been more than that.
Okay, well, the example I'm gonna give is, what do you think happens when you put out a hotel to bid, dealing with 100 attorneys at the national park? More than that. So, but, the one thing I did wanna mention was, there was, and Lorelei and others, I can get you the specific language, in the last Department of Interior appropriations, I had language put in there that says that the Department of Interior and the National Parks is supposed to partner, not sell, not buy, with the Virgin Islands government for a park, for a school that partners with the community here. So in the same way that the Department of Interior has partnerships within its parks on reservations in other parts of the country, that this language in the appropriations language for last year, 2017, says that the park is supposed to partner with our local government to create one of those within the park for the people in this community. Yes? Okay, and then in terms of jobs.
Okay, well, thank you. We're looking to hire in the very near future 4 fee collectors, up to 2 park guys.
When you say near future, what does that mean?
Well, the problem is, we submit our paperwork and it goes into this black hole. And then
Well,
eventually.
don't say that, because that's not the way. So where does it go?
It goes to Atlanta, and then Atlanta works on it, and then Atlanta puts it out on the streets. It's
So-
taking on average 4 months for us to make an announcement, for us to send the paperwork in, and then for it to come out on the streets.
So you put in the request for a job, that then goes to the regional office, which is in Atlanta. They then process it, and then they put it on USA Jobs.
Right.
And that's where I then ask, when you send it to Atlanta, to please let my office know, because when you just put it on USA Jobs, Virgin Islanders are unaware that there's a job out there available on USA Jobs, unless they know someone in the park who tells them to look out for something. So if you let us know, we're then able, through my official funds, to actually put postings, advertise postings, that there are jobs available.
Normally, the government would put those postings up in the office. You guys don't do that? No.
That's
Government of the Virgin Islands post their openings in each office or in the personal office.
Right, but they're not Virgin Islands government posting.
But at least for us,
So when you disseminate that there's a job announcement, you said you do press releases of it?
Yeah, do a press release.
And do you have, the local government personnel and others on that press release list?
I don't know who's on the press release list, I do not know. I know it's extensive, but I don't know where all it goes.
One of the things that was discussed when Stan was here, yes, he's not. We requested in those 20 questions, due to the mandate of the Virgin Islands
Yes.
National Park,
Yes.
that our jobs not go on USA.gov, but go in another location so that Virgin Islander or people, residents of the Virgin Islands can get to those jobs. The National Park has a very stringent system where they give jobs to veterans preference first, which I understand and respect. But, there are other openings as well. We are requesting based on our mandate for the Virgin Islands National Park, we would like to have a 99% Virgin Islander.
So this is,
Versus Puerto Rico, who has almost 100%,
Yes, they do.
99.9 of them being employed.
Right.
So we are requesting that based on our mandate. So we are looking for you to make sure that they follow the mandate.
well, the mandate requires that they give preference when the job is announced. It doesn't require, and it would probably be against the federal law for them to not put it on USA Jobs.
But they
So-
still put it on there, but they need to make some type of a difference so that we in the territory.
So they're
know what
supposed to,
know.
at the regional office, when they're reviewing, when they have review boards, to give preference based on the mandate,
Would you like a team of us to come to Washington DC or to Atlanta?
all the time.
And
Can
Lola,
you hang the job postings at the visitor center? I think that would help.
So we had a job opening that opened Friday, a couple weeks ago. So many people applied, it closed Sunday. We didn't have a chance to put it.
What do you mean, so many people are?
Oh, on USA Jobs, over 100.
I don't care if 100 people apply.
It closes. We can't take any more announcements. Once 100 people apply, it's closed.
Here's the question. Did you send it to us first?
That, we found out Friday morning, first Friday morning that it's going out, and then I don't know where the press release went from there.
I think what people are upset about is there's a lot of people here that lost their jobs, you guys need employees. So why are we looking for people outside of the Virgin Islands? There's people here that have lost their
The federal
jobs.
law says we
and
have to go
4
to
months,
USA Jobs.
it's not your fault, but 4 months is quite frankly unacceptable to make a job post. And it's not your fault, that's the federal level fault. But there has to be an avenue for you guys to talk to and advocate. I know that there's chain of command that you guys can talk to and say, hey, there's people here in the Virgin Islands that need jobs, we need these jobs filled. 4 months is unacceptable for us to post a job. I mean, there has to be, you can't tell me that you can't go up your chain of command and talk to people in a higher level to get these things done faster. Because I deal with different government agencies, and I know that you can.
So I'll hit just real quick on the hiring. So what we did put in place is a Caribbean hiring review board. And in those 21 questions, it says, how did you announce the job? It's a requirement now for each park superintendent to announce it in the local papers, go on the radio. I've been on the radio myself, talking about our job opportunities. And where we can't use obligated tax dollars to put ads in papers, we have levied our friends group in certain cases and in St. Croix to use their soft dollars to put it in the papers. So when it comes to actually hiring a government employee, it is so strict, and it is across the nation in how you get employed. There is a veteran's preference. We can't get past that. There's nobody I could talk to about getting past the veteran's preference.
Who knew about the job last Friday? Who did you tell?
I don't know. That's a good question.
This is very important, because you said there are procedures in place to make sure that we are aware, so I wanna know, who locally.
I can look back on the review board and review the questions. Yeah.
Superintendent, do you know about the job?
I found out the job after it closed.
So.
You found out that it opened? But you knew that you were sending the request to Atlanta.
Right.
You knew 4 months ago that you were, or whatever months ago that you were gonna send it to Atlanta. But I didn't know that you sent anything to Atlanta.
See, there's a lack of communication somewhere. If you didn't know about the job post.
Oh, I agree.
I'm not saying it's your fault.
No.
I'm not yelling at you.
I'll
I'm saying
look
that
back at the
there's,
I'll
I'm
answer
saying
review
there's a
questions
major
and
lack of
get you the answer.
communication between Washington and St. John.
Can you get an update on Canada? An update on Canada?
So can we, okay, Mr. Kessler, you've been waiting patiently, you have a question, and then in the very back, and then we'll move on.
Just a point of information. There's another mechanism or a waiver called a commuter status or commuter preference or something like that, that is difficult to obtain, but some federal jobs, the hiring managers or the division, the agency chiefs or whatever, can request that for certain positions. I was at Glacier Mountain Park last week. There they have obtained these waivers for certain positions in order to increase participation of members of the Blackfoot Nation in the park staff. Now, maybe part of that happens because the Secretary of the Interior is from Montana, but I suggest that maybe perhaps you would have influence with the Office of Personnel Management to maybe get some of those waivers for certain positions here, which essentially requires the applicants to be within the commuting area of the position.
I have a question. What's the difference between the way the federal government use national park in Puerto Rico and in the Virgin Islands? It's a big difference. It's a big difference. You all sit there and you talk about consistency. There's no consistency. How is Puerto Rico so much different than the Virgin Islands? It's the same federal government. I mean, let's be honest. And I'm gonna sit here and you know what's happening? In St. John, we need the friends of St. John, not the friends of the damn national park. Right. We need the friends of St. John. That's what we need.
So,
You can set alerts on USA.com, and they'll send you when openings apply. So you can go yourself, sign in, and they'll send you alerts. So you can take charge of that yourself. So just so everyone's aware, you can do it.
so we wanted to now move on to Camille Bay. And so, thank you, Mr. Black. If Randy and Gary Engel would come up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask Mr. Engel to make a presentation on what's happening with Camille Bay. And so what I promised everyone is that I would try and get both of the parties who are involved in this in the same room together, and that you could ask questions at the same time so that they can hear each other's answers. That's been difficult for me to get as well, so here we go.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Let me start. I'm Gary Engel. I have a company called Stoney Capital, and we are the majority owner and manager of Camille Bay, and have been such since 2004. And I've been listening carefully to all the comments tonight, and I think the themes that I've been hearing, if I could summarize them, is a desire for jobs and a frustration with an unresponsive bureaucracy. And I don't think it has anything to do with Randy or Steve. I think it is built into the nature of the organization. Shortly after the storms, well before Representative Plaskett introduced her legislation. I was fortunate to have a meeting with Secretary Zinke in Washington, and I explained to him the situation. I said the devastation of the storms was total. It would require about $100 million to bring Neil Bay back. It's about 400 jobs, could be more in a new improved version of Neil Bay. And that the ability to do something with the Park Service in an orderly fashion, like a lease. I don't know if there's many members of the media here tonight, but there's been talk about resuming a discussion with the National Park about a lease. We tried that. We had legislation passed in 2010. It is now 2018, and we have made less than zero progress towards a constructive deal. And that was when the requirement was for us to invest $20 million. We now have to invest $100 million. So I made it very clear to Representative Zinke, and I did subsequently to Congresswoman Plaskett, Congressman Bishop in the House Resource Committees, Senator Cantwell and Murkowski in the Senate, that there is no way that I am going to sit down and negotiate a lease with the National Park. And I think the conversation tonight and the frustration you're all experiencing was exactly the frustration I experienced after having spent about $1.5 million to try to get to a lease in 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15. I will not do that again. So the question is the 400 jobs for the St. John community, is that important? Is it important enough for the federal government to act? That's number one. Number two, is there an alternative to what Representative Plaskett has introduced in the House? We have a contract until 2023. It's a very simple contract. If we do not pass this legislation, which she has done at this, and by the way, I have to say this, when I did make the case to Secretary Zinke, he was all in support of what we were trying to do. He understood very much the difficulty that I encountered in trying to get a lease done with the National Park. So he was in support of it. Congressman Bishop, who chairs the Natural Resources Committee, at least until the midterm elections, chairs the Natural Resource Committee in the House, was all for it. And your Congresswoman was smart enough and educated enough in economics to understand this was the only way to get this property rebuilt and get those 400 jobs back in employment. And so that's what I'm here to do. I very much want to rebuild this property. Very much want to do that. There are constraints in the existing retained use estate, which was good enough for Lawrence Rockefeller for 40 years. We've had it for 14 years. We didn't do anything I think that was abusive. I mean, there can be some. Obviously, I've had about 4 or 5 meetings with employees and other people in the community, so I've taken my shots here, and I'll take them. Nobody is perfect. I'm admitting
employment, employees, and you admit that there are things that you could have done better.
But there is not a business in this country that hasn't committed those sins. Some more than others.
You're saying that you do that.
It doesn't. I'm just putting it.
I'm saying that you have said that you will make some changes.
I have said that we always try to do our best. We will try to do our best, and we will work hard to do that. David, I just wanted to make my point. I'm going to come to you in 1 second. We are not doing anything to expand the resort. We want to have 166, which is what we have right now. We want to have 166 rooms to rent, and that is where I'm at. There's no mid-rise units that we built. I can't build them pursuant to the contracts that we have in place. And we want to maintain the legacy that Rockefeller created. We want to maintain, and by the way, the world economy is growing in such a way that travel and leisure is going to be the major growth industry for the world. And Canal Bay and the property that sits here, and the Virgin Islands, and St. John, should be, if not the best, one of the top beach resorts in the world. I've traveled extensively, and I can tell you that there's hardly a place I've seen that matches all the magic and charm that this place has to offer. So success is in the creation of this thing. And so Representative Plaskett got this bill introduced a year ago. We are sitting here. Unfortunately, it's not just the bureaucracy in Washington that's slow and the wheels grind slowly. It's also the political people, but we've been working it hard and continue to work it hard. And I'm optimistic to think at some point we'll get this bill passed, and we'll go to work building the resort and getting back to where Camille Bay was and even better. So I'm gonna,
So before we begin the questions, I just want to state what my position had been. Was that I understood that Congresswoman Christensen had offered this lease arrangement, that the park would go enter into negotiations with Camille Bay for an additional lease, for a lease arrangement with the national parks. And the frustration that we all feel with getting the parks to commit to roads. I've been working on St. Croix for the 3 years that I've been here to get the parks to clean toilets in Buck Island. So the notion of them finally committing to the leasing arrangements was monumental. And the notion that a developer didn't have to repair but actually had to rebuild the facility, which means that although he's getting some insurance, he had to get financiers to finance this as well. And the amount of funding that he needed, you were not going to get a return on the investment in a 40-year lease. That was not going to happen. Mr. Engel wanted longer than we gave a lease. When governments usually lease hotel developers to build a hotel, it's usually a 99-year lease. We asked for 60 years. We thought that that was a reasonable compromise for him to receive a return on his investments that would allow his financiers to be able to give the money to quickly rebuild this. And I was tired of the bureaucracy of the Department of Interior and not believing that they would come to the table for a lease agreement and wanting this to get done as quickly as possible to rebuild. I've asked Mr. Engel to please respond to the questions of the size, and it was my understanding, and he has committed to putting an agreement that no, he is not going to build high rises, he is not going to do whatever. But I understand that that isn't the property that is there, and that's not the charm, and that's not why the people pay what they pay to be able to come to Camille Bay. Other members of Congress have been supportive, but there have been individuals who have influence in this community who have caused other members to say, let's hold off on this, and that's why it has not moved forward. So it is my intention to ask you all, what do you want to have done with this? Do you want to have it? Because if we let this die, then the parks will put it out to bid. And we'll wait to see how long that takes, and we'll wait to see how long a negotiation takes place on a lease. And you know, I live on St. Croix, and I know what happened to Grapetree on the south shore of St. Croix after Hugo, and a couple of other hotels which do not exist anymore. So let's open up for questions, and we'll start this way and move that way. Okay? Yes.
Mr. Engel, my name is Elaine Esther. I'm glad to know that you realize that you have a lease for a gold mine, because that's exactly what you have. It's a beautiful property and it's very pristine, and we truly all hope that you will keep it that way. I'm wondering why exactly you will not agree to sign the lease that was written in 2010.
let me, if I could, for some reason that I cannot understand, this idea that there was a lease negotiated is a lie. It was never negotiated.
No, the public law is that they negotiate for a lease, not that this is the lease.
Right. I'll just give you I'll give you the facts. 2010, the legislation was signed by President Obama. 2012, 2 years later, I find the National Park finally identified a consultant, not a decision maker, but a consultant, to come negotiate a lease with me. I was required to spend a fair amount of money on consultants to establish the market, to establish certain environmental, et cetera, et cetera. The consultant, we had one meeting on that. It never went anywhere. Years passed. It still didn't go anywhere. It was the most frustrating experience I've had. There was never a lease negotiated. A lease is a complex document. A commercial lease is a complex document, and it never even made it through the entire bureaucracy of the national park. So there was nothing to sign. Nothing.
I brought last time we had a meeting a copy of the the entire document, the 2010 law. And I personally didn't see any problem with it, and what you say is true, that you don't wanna enlarge it.
No, the law empowered,
I don't understand why we can't use that as a use.
the law authorized the negotiation. That anticipated the creation of a lease to be negotiated, just like if you sit down with your landlord and you were negotiating a lease. I sat down with the National Park trying to negotiate a lease. They never gave me a document to work with, so there was nothing to sign.
But what do you have against that law?
I have nothing against that law.
So maybe.
I have, the only thing I have against the law right now is that law was premised on my investing $20 million in that property. I'm now required to invest $100 million. There is no way I would consider one day less than 60 years for an instrument. And by the way, yeah, because you get $100 million is 5 times the amount. And I'm asking for 50% more in time to amortize 5 times the investment of what was required in that legislation.
But you did have insurance. But anyway.
What does that have to do with it? I'm not. I'm not. Let me put it this way: $100 million. I'm going to have to dip into my pocket. So I'm not. It's not $100 million.
So the only thing you really want to change is 60 years instead of 40.
No.
There's other things you want.
Well, I want the property to be 166 units, but I want some of the upland units to be used for employee housing. Okay, so I have a few more units I don't want to build, but not many.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Pam Gaffin. So Stacey, other than Mr. Engel saying what a great economics person you are, have you gotten a fair market value study done of what a 60-year lease for this amazing piece of property is worth?
Yes, we have seen those.
Okay, so how much is it worth?
I don't have that number off the top of my head for you.
That would be a very important number if we're
Well,
talking about a 60-year lease for an amazing piece of property.
Sure, so this was,
Needs to get this money,
so
and
this,
you already know it's worth.
I do know, but I just said I don't have that number off of the top of my head.
Is it $100 million?
It's more than that.
How much?
She's asking the question, or are you asking the question, Ramel? So let me tell you what my analysis was there is the value of this property. Do the people of St. John want the national parks to decide, we're going to put this out to bid, we're going to break the lease, and this is your decision. We're going to break the lease, which means that he can hold the lease for as long as he has the he can hold the RUE until it expires. And then you will then have the national parks put this out to bid, and then we will wait for the bid process to occur, and then the national parks will enter into a lease negotiation with that person, and then that person, after they've entered the lease, that's when they'll break ground and begin to do the rebuilding of Camille Bay. Now, if the people of St. John are willing to wait 10 years for that process at the minimum to take place over what that's done, my assessment was that that is not in the best interest not only of St. John's economy and the people of St. John in the short or long term, and also for overall for the Virgin Islands economy. I didn't consult with you, and I think that's your problem.
I would like to propose a suggestion.
Yes.
As a compromise. Since this is a profit-making situation.
That's what most hoteliers do.
And, yes, and we all, young St. John, could lose some money. Perhaps what we need to do is have an addition to this for 60 years, that each person that lives on St. John gets a piece of the action. And we become stakeholders in what the profit that is being made by Camille.
So
and I would like very much, please, for you to give me the evaluations that you've had of how much this 60 years of Camille Bay is worth.
If I might add,
Of the property or the 60 years? Which one?
60 years, basically, you can do anything. I mean, what was it? Not even 1%?
doesn't come
I wanna know what it's for.
the lease agreement, remember, the lease agreement and that funding does not come to the Virgin Islands, that's federal funding, right?
I asked you the fair market value, what somebody out there would pay.
Okay, that's what you want, anything else? Anything else?
Well, I would like to entertain the notion that let's have shareholders at St. John's be shareholders in.
How much are you putting in for your share?
Yeah.
How much are you putting in for your share?
As much as the insurance, well, we need to know how much the insurance is putting in first.
We the people own the property.
So the next person, excuse me, there are people who are raising their hands. Laura? No, there are people who are raising their hands, please.
Good evening, sir. My name is Lorelai Monsanto. My family has been on this island for over 200 years. So I have a real vested interest in what happens here on my island. My island. Okay? My daughter is 19 years old. If I agree to give you a 60-year lease, she will be 80 years old, sir. She will have no discussion, no play, nothing in her future will happen. She will have nothing to say, nothing to give or take from this property. So if you really are interested in becoming a partner with the residents of St. John and the people of St. John, I think we need to look at it less. I know you have money to invest, but we have our lives that we have invested in. Your management agents that you have on your bed, when the storm came, before the storm came, they were awful. I hate the fact when people come to St. John, they tout this all the time. We're bringing you 400 jobs. You're not bringing me 400 jobs. You're bringing 400 jobs from the States to people here, and then we get the drag jobs. Y'all be the maids, y'all be the cooks, y'all be the gardeners. We don't get the management job. One person, Chad, thank God for Chad, he's in management. Whatever, Chad is right there in the corner, the gentleman in the corner. Okay, so the point of the matter is that we, or I will speak for myself and my generations to come, we want to be intricate team players with you, but you have to be honest and realistic. I have to be realistic that my child will be 80 years old and not have an integral part in her island. I am working hard for her to have something, to make sure that she can maintain here. I can hardly maintain here. So how am I going to make it possible for her? You are telling me you have worked hard with them, but we have to put an amicable decision. As an indigenous St. Jonian, 60 years is too long.
Okay, Ronell, did you have something to say?
Good evening. One of the biggest things that one of the resounding themes that we're hearing, obviously here tonight, is everybody in here is pretty much asking for the ability to just have a say or have a part in what's happening. Because it's affecting us on a daily basis. We're the ones that's going to have to live in it and live with it. And the decision that you made with the bill that you presented, we don't feel like we had a say in that with what it is that you presented. And as a servant for the people, a person that we elected into office, I personally voted for you. And to be honest with you, I'm totally disappointed in the stance that you took, the way that you took it, what it is that was done, without consulting with us first and foremost, the people that put you into office, which you should have done. So moving forward, as the decisions are being made, we feel it is very necessary that you continue to engage us and we engage you guys and have a conversation about what it is that needs to be done and how it is that needs to be done. And not the decisions being made behind the scenes without our input. There's a reason why we put you into office, and that's to represent us. So represent us to them.
Did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. Well, come. I don't think they can hear you. Come, please.
What I was going to say is, we all have issues, right? But this gentleman is going to have the place for about 60 years. Actually, I feel his national park is what's supposed to be getting all this hardship, all these hard words, because for years they have been against us and putting us through a lot of changes. He is only 60 years. But those people are the people who we have really have the problem. They're not who we really have the problem. He's only 60 years, and if he don't get it, they could just do what they want out of us, even though he's speaking these days. You see what I'm saying? I just bring this forward because we have to like look at both areas. You know, we have to look at both areas.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, there's a couple of other
I'd
people.
like to
who-
know if the bill that we presented stands on its own merit, or is it tacked onto another bill?
So legislation can do one of two things. So it can stand on its own, as its own vehicle, or the language in legislation can be attached to other bills as well. If there's bills that have relevant issues or, larger appropriation bills, when they move, sometimes members put pieces on there. I did not put this attached to other legislation, although both the chairmans of the House as well as the Senate were willing to move it forward.
On its own merit, or is it tacked, is it?
No, I said I did not attach it to anything
It's
else.
not attached.
It's no.
There's no
I'm not
Senate
attached.
companion.
I'm sorry?
There's no Senate companion, right?
The Senate companion bill can be drafted and put forward in the next day. I mean, that doesn't, that's an easy movement. And sometimes legislation doesn't need a Senate companion bill. Or there isn't sometimes a House companion bill to legislation that moves forward. Front row. And then I'll come back to you.
Mr. Engel sidestepped your question, Ms. Estern, about exactly what the sticking points were in the negotiations. You emphasized that an agreement was never presented to you. What you didn't share and what you didn't answer the question was, what were the sticking points? I'll continue and then you can answer. Congresswoman Plaskett, thanks for holding the meeting. An awful lot of heat is being pushed over here to the national park. In fact, you guys and your inability to put out contracts for concessions and the ability to act is what's being blamed by both of these people as to why the lease negotiation broke down. In fact, I suspect there were lots of details, including an effort by CBI to maximize a profit margin to a gross extreme, because that's what these people were all about. You indicated that the National Park, Congresswoman Plaskett, is going to take 10 years to address this. I would like for you to respond to that when you have an opportunity, because that's preposterous. There are many contracts leased and concessions entered into, probably in the thousands, by the National Park each year. So to say that this is not doable is absurd. What's not
I didn't say it
doable?
wasn't doable. I said the
You said it would
timeframe
take up
in
to
which
10
it
years.
takes.
You have been threatening the people of St. John with your
I
logic.
haven't threatened them. I told
If
them
I
what
could,
my
if I could
analysis
categorize
is.
it my way and then you categorize it your way.
Okay.
You've been threatening the people of St. John, sort of blackmailing us, saying, unless I support these people and give in to them, you guys aren't going to have employment. That's been the threat. The notion that the CBI needs 60 years has not been demonstrated. You don't even know how much insurance they have. He's not willing to tell us. CBI operate behind a smokescreen, and you're asking the Congresswoman who has taken your words, but we're not going to, in terms of your representations about numbers. That you have EBC benefits. Why are you not paying taxes like the rest of us? Why are you entitled to EBC benefits? What are your profit margins? Why are you entitled to 60? Why are you needy? You won't even share insurance amounts, so the amounts that you're throwing out about what you're going to have to invest is poppycock. It's whatever you want it to be because you're not sharing
Would
information.
you rather I take the insurance money to move on?
That would be great. Yeah, that would be great. Because you may have received the feeling from St. John, Mr. Engel, that you're not very welcome here. And the reason is the attitude that's been demonstrated by Neil. I personally went to walk through the trail of the National Park Trail, which you're saying is unusable to get to Honeymoon Beach. But you have a concession there that's bringing in employees, supplies, and other personnel daily. But you have interfered with the Virgin Islanders' access to the National Park system. How can our acting superintendent and that's a problem, acting superintendent. We don't have any continuity here. We don't have any solid real leadership for St. John in the National Park. You've been terrific. The park has been terrific in many ways. We are lacking leadership, and we are lacking opportunities in the Virgin Islands National Park for local employment. That's what one of the things was. But there's more. You're not giving information that an intelligent person, and I'm sure you're intelligent, I know you are, but you have not been given information by
How do you
people.
know it, Heather? How do you know that I'm not
Why
allowed to
aren't
say
you?
what that is?
Well, then you should be. You should be
I
getting
may not
information
be
and
allowed.
secret that you can't share with the public that is a basis for your decisions about what to do with public land. So my biggest concern here really is a smoke screen that's being put up and the threat that's being made against us behind the smoke screen about not doing anything with the land. I went through, I was met by Mr. Prentice with 2 German Shepherd dogs and was threatened to not to walk through. This is a road we've all been using for many years, and it's been for hundreds of years. There is a national park trail system. The National Piniel Bay is interfering with the use and the enjoyment of the national park trail system, as well as Mr. Samuel said, with the beaches. We can't even, by CZM perfect conditions for Piniel Bay, we are entitled to the use of the Piniel Bay Beach and Honeymoon Beach, and you're deliberately blocking it without any valid reason. I will stop.
Sir?
Well,
I don't think there was
frankly,
really a
there
question.
were so many, there was more of a statement than it was a series of questions.
It was a question.
What is the insurance? And why won't you share it?
Because it is confidential information and it's not for public consumption.
But you're using
Number one.
it in
Number
charter
two, it is not
schools not to
completely
go
settled
forward.
yet. It is not completely settled yet. And so I'm not divulging insurance. I'm not gonna talk about profit. The fact of the matter is, even with a 2023 deadline, you're talking about as if I have pillaged this property. In fact, 1 year before the storm, I invested $2.5 million in renovating the rooms. I was in the process of renovating another 15 rooms, and an expenditure of $2 million last year when the storm hit. So I don't want to hear about the fact that I've been the implication that I've been an irresponsible citizen in St. John. I find personally very offensive, and I wouldn't tell you this information for the sheer spite of it at this point. With that kind of attitude. You've insulted me here. You stood there in a public forum. You've insulted my integrity when I've done nothing wrong in trying to manage this property based on the legacy I inherited.
My name is David Giacomo. I live in Gibbsville. I am an attorney. I have the agreements that he's operating under. Now, most of you don't know that under these agreements, the retained use agreement that he's operating under, he can more than double the size of the units at Piniel. That's in his current agreement. So he could make a decision that he's going to build 370 units, I think it is, isn't that right? That you could, under the retained use agreement, you could put up to 370 units on the property. That's correct. So he could double the size of Piniel and the effect. Did you know he can put 150 units on Honeymoon Beach alone under this agreement? So what we, Mr. Engel, you're about my age. I'm 66 years old. You must be pretty close to the same. He is asking to be able to run Piniel for as long as I've been born. And if you add the 14 years to it, it's actually longer than whoever it was in the back who said it would be 80 years. It actually will be a full 80 years he would be in control of an asset that is owned by we, the people of the United States and St. John. So I had an idea for a compromise, which Mr. Engel appears not to want to do. You heard what he said, he wasn't going to negotiate. So I have 36 points that I've given to the press, to Mr. Engel, to Representative Plaskett, and to others. For example, what could Mr. Engel commit to do? He could commit to build it in an environmentally responsible way. So far, he won't negotiate that.
He could agree that he's not gonna use oxybenzone on the beaches of Keneal. He apparently won't agree to that. He could agree that he's not gonna disturb the ancestral lands that go back, or artifacts that go back to the Taino culture. He will not make a commitment that he will not disturb those human and other remains that have been there for centuries. We know they're there because they're at Cinnamon Beach. He won't make any commitment about that. I have 36 other very reasonable, thoughtful, responsible kinds of things that any normal business person would probably agree to. He won't commit to those. So our representative on this piece of paper, 450 words, is giving Mr. Engel $3.5 billion for almost nothing. He won't even pay rent. If you read this legislation, it says 1.2% rent, but he gets credit for rebuilding with the insurance money he gets. So in the end, Mr. Engel will make, by Stacey Plaskett's own calculations, $65 million a year and pay the people of the United States and us nothing. Now, Representative Plaskett could have put all of these conditions or terms like the ones I said, build in a leads way, don't use excessive plastic, don't use reusable water bottles, meet with the Park Service regularly, give us a schedule of reconstruction, show us the plans for the architectural plans and what you plan to do, give the people of St. John access for free instead of charging us $20 a car. So there are 36 of those very sensible, reasonable, thoughtful things, and what you heard from Mr. Engel was he's insulted, but he's insulted and wants to use our $3.5 billion valued property to make money for generations to come. Is that what you want to happen?
So, thank you. And I received this today from you.
Right.
So you've made it sound like you've given me this.
No, I didn't. I wasn't pretending I gave that to you.
Okay. And you know, as I said, that this is really a discussion that's going on for some period of time. Mr. And I'm sorry, Ms. Monsanto needs to speak and then you guys.
Yeah.
No, Ms. Monsanto.
Can I go first or I can go?
I want to catch a boat too.
You're going to need a ride to the next 4 rows.
I have a ride. Don't worry. You know, I'm truly sorry to you know, the feeling that has been charged here right now, you know, not knowing what we would be confronted with this. But my question to you, Delegate, is there any other interest in this project, like for instance the Bloomberg Corporation, or other people are making an interest here, because there seems to be some frictions, and Mr. You know, I don't know the gentleman personally, but if I were in his position, I would feel a little bit out of it, because in 60 years, none of us can be in here, none of us can be around.
I will be.
You know, I'm going for 120. I don't know what you think, but you know, it might be long. He may want to rethink or do, but the insults and whatnot, it's not necessary. And I feel that, and I still maintain and ask my question: did you have any other interested parties in this project, such as, and I would be specific, the Bloomberg Corporation?
I have not had anyone say that they were interested in the project that have approached me, but I'm sure that there are interested parties.
I believe
and
that's the problem.
it's becoming very evident to me and to others in Washington that there are other interested parties.
That is the problem here.
Yeah.
Might pay more money.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, I'm not sure. The question I have is this. I read the attack after from last year. The question I have is the benefits that you are going to see. What benefits are you going to offer to the employees? Matter of fact, we have a state of Kentucky have a Toyota plan. And based on the EDC benefits they're receiving, all 100% of employees, not 80-20, are employed by the state of Kentucky. And also receive up to 90% of the insurance premiums are paid by the employer. Are you going to offer those type of benefits to the employees?
I would offer consistent benefits as we did in the past.
If you can't really request that, you can. I'm trying to.
So, I've also talked with Mr. Engel about the issues that we have with employment, as well as you talked about the lands and having community activities. A lot of that, before coming to Congress, I was the general counsel of the EDC. And so I understand that with those EDC benefits, there is the ability to put in a lot of these requirements as well, so that moving forward, those are the things that the people of the Virgin Islands would benefit the people of the Virgin Islands. And those things are usually negotiated in those contracts as well. The community activity, the scholarships, the access in terms of hotel, because pretty much most of the hotels in the Virgin Islands receive EDC benefits to incentivize them to come and build, as well as some of these that I think are very interesting that you put here. Yes.
My name is Kenneth Vikrama. I'd like to, I know we have been, quite a few have been factually hard on you, but you have also done a lot for the community in getting the billions of dollars, working the aisles in the Congress. So we appreciate that. So thank you for that, Congresswoman. But having said that, I think you're also smart enough to take the knowledge that these other people are bringing, and maybe with newfound knowledge, perhaps you could revisit the...
It would be wonderful if people would come to my office, and as we offered Ramel to come and have a meeting with me, as opposed to being on Facebook talking about it.
Meetings on about 10 different occasions.
Hold on a
So,
second.
and
Let me
to
just
have
share-
those discussions would be wonderful.
With you one thing, with all of you. I just made one phone call and I got to her assistant. So it is, we can get more out of honey. Like one of the things I have done the last 10 years that I've been in this island is reach out in a friendly, amicable manner, and we have got results. Most of you know we passed the plastic straw 2 days ago. We, like that, there are other things we're working on, but it can be done if we approach the same way. So let's forget the past, and I would invite you to call the Congresswoman. Now, having said that, I take personally what I heard about Mr. Engel being upset. We have the general manager of the Westin, and I know the general manager of the Gallows. Let me ask you this. The way they treated the people of the island to get the water, get the diesel, can you do any of that? No. So when you're saying, sir, maybe you're not aware, you laid off people, didn't help, said no to my friends who had diesel and who were asking to help out to replace it. He said no. The Westin opened the door for free, so did Gallows Point. And they housed up police people, our firefighters. And you will attest to that. You stayed there for some time, right?
Who, me?
Yes.
No, I didn't stay there.
At Gallows?
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Okay. But you're part of that operation. Akil was saying that you were there for a couple of days. Anyway, so what I'm saying is they reached out to many people to help out, but Camille didn't do any of that. So when you're saying you were insulted, we do want to know why they said that, because they experienced something different, sir. So I beg to share with real evidence how people are treated after the hurricane. You know, even my own little house, I kept people there. I allowed people to be there. We ran the generator. But
we have people, and
Yes.
I don't, we provided water. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Representative, I would just like to know, if this bill does not pass in this Congress, and you have to resubmit it in the next Congress, would you be willing to make some changes to it to accommodate some of the suggestions that you're getting tonight?
I mean, I have said, and we have had discussions within my office about, and had discussions with Mr. Engel about if the bill moves it's out of committee, and if it to move on to the floor, to offer certain amendments based on discussions that we've had. So, you know, I take umbrage, sir, at you saying that I'm not being intelligent, I'm not being thoughtful.
That's not what I said, so if you want to quote me correctly.
Okay, that I'm threatening and I'm blackmailing.
That won't go away.
Okay, I take umbrage at that because, you know, people talk about I'm not from St. John, but my family has been in the Virgin Islands for 300 years. The reason I'm here is because I care about the Virgin Islands. That's why I have this.
Then do your research
And
and
I
get
am
the
doing my
numbers.
research.
You don't even
And
have
you
the insurance
you don't
number.
understand, you don't know if I do or I don't, because I
None of
haven't
us
told
do.
you.
None of us do.
You don't know that, but you made that assumption, and you need to stop making assumptions. So, I told you I know. I told you I know these numbers. So can I ask, yes, ma'am.
My name is Teresa Jermaine, and I'm a former employee of Canil and also a former union chef steward of Canil, and I'm quite familiar with Mr. Ingle. I've been to meetings, different negotiations and so forth with him, and I know for sure that Canil is a gold mine. Canil Bay will remain a gold mine because of its natural resources. But Mr. Ingle, for the past 14 years, he and his entourage has managed Canil Bay. They have taken Canil Bay downhill. Our employees were mistreated.
Yes.
Our employees were mistreated.
Yes.
We used to have at least 400 employees at Canil. They beat it down to roughly maybe 200 or even less part-time workers. Nobody at Canil were full-time workers anymore. And what they did, they brought in a system. They had no mechanics, they had no plumbers, they had no engineers. Everybody were diversified mechanics. So they could take you from where you are, send you to plunge the toilet. You cannot say no, you are diversified. They have done a lot to Canil. From my looking back at it, if Mr. Ingle gets Canil for the other 40 years with, not 60, if he gets there for another 40 years, Mr. Ingle could make back whatever he's putting into Canil to bring Canil back to what it is. Our community on a whole is hurting because Canil Bay is not there. Not just the few employees that were there that were benefiting, the whole community, our restaurants, the taxi drivers, the local stores, and just name a few. All of them were benefiting from Canil. Now there is no more Canil. They would not even hire people to go in and say, clean Canil Bay up so it could still look a little presentable. They have done nothing to Canil. He has gotten his insurance money. He doesn't want to divulge how much it is. It's fine. But then use it along with whatever resources to put Canil Bay up on the market again, to put Canil Bay back to par, that our people could benefit it. And whatever he's planning to do, if it's not to the benefit of our employees or our community, it's not making any sense to us. It's not really benefiting us. So even if he's talking about what he has to spend, what he wants to do, if it's not going to benefit this community of St. John, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I have 7 children, and my 7 children went to school here in St. John. I was able to send them to school, give them an education. Otherwise, working at Canil Bay, my husband and myself. Canil Bay is not the problem. It's the management that came abroad that brought down Canil Bay, and natural disaster took its toll.
I'd like to ask if, you know, there's a concession in Honeymoon at present. Why I ask that is, this is part of the national park, it's at Canil Bay. There's a concession in Honeymoon. There's a boat service that brings, a dinghy boat service that brings people to this concession using the national park waters, which is owned by an outsider, a white person. I'm a black taxi driver. We can't bring people into Canil Bay and drop people to go to that same concession. You think that's fair to the local people? It's not.
I couldn't show much.
They could bring people there. A white boat owner could bring people there by dinghy to that concession in Canil Bay, which is part of the national park. But us, local blacks, can't bring people there by taxis to Canil Bay because it's closed. We're not allowed to go on the property.
Yes.
I don't think that road is well navigable by taxis, the road that Highland Beach.
I know, so my understanding after speaking.
No,
one minute.
Excuse, I just wanna say that, we had a correspondence, cause we just learned about that as well. And we had a correspondence that said that, that there was a discussion with Seville at VI Eco Tours was investigating an arrangement for taxis to drop off at Herrick Hill.
What?
You know where that is?
Then point.
Okay, and from there to allow people to come through to be able to get to Honeymoon Beach.
You have to go to the trail.
Through a trail.
No, the trail, that trail's been open. That's not the point. What I'm saying is, he's saying that the road, because of the condition of the road, the road has nothing to do with it. Because Canilbe, transportation within Canilbe.
Right.
You come in and you drop to the parking lot.
Exactly, yes.
And you walk from there.
You walk from there.
We're not even allowed to go to the parking lot to drop.
Yes, I understand that.
Saying that, that's not true.
So we
Road
have,
has nothing
I know,
to do with it.
my chief of staff has just had, in the last 2 days, when we found this out from the taxi cab owners, to talk with Patrick Kidd in your office about how to make that accessible for the taxi cab drivers. to be able to drive.
He's in New York. Patrick Kidd's
Yeah, but
in
he's
New York.
managing the property, so that's the contact that we've had. We'll also talk to Chad, but we were having discussions with them, because we did hear from the taxi cab drivers that this has been a problem, and we agree. It was the concessionaire, who's the person who's using the boats, who has contracted with someone to bring boats on dinghies to Honeymoon. And we agreed that it's not appropriate, that our taxi cab drivers are not getting that business as well.
Stacey, I'd like to address the.
There are several other people who have raised their hands, who have not raised their hands in the past, and we've had
Just one
quite a
issue
number.
about
No, can we have
employment.
some other people please be able to raise their hands to speak, who have not
I
spoken
would like to
yet?
speak to you about the NEC
Okay.
benefits that they have been avoiding with
Can we,
employees.
Mel, in front.
Yes, I would like to thank you all for being here tonight. Regarding employment, it is an insult to me how Keneal looks presently. I am involved with Mongoose Junction, across the street from your property. That property has not been, it's abandoned. I just would beg you, you've got some insurance money, put some people to work, start the cleanup. Take some of those buildings down that you know are destroyed. Let's get on with it.
We hire these people to do cinema. So,
Someone
thank you.
else is, yes.
I talk to people all
In
the
the back,
time.
I'm sorry? Okay,
And
in the
what
back.
if the Canada employees are unhappy? Your customers, the guests, they're very unhappy too. I just want to share with you. So the guests, they're very unhappy the way that you treat the employees. I talk to people all day. I'm a conceptualist. I talk all day and I get feedback from the customers that stay at Canada and they say they're very unhappy the way that your management is treating them. I just wanted to share with you.
Sir.
Yeah, my question basically is for the national park to clarify something. We understood that the honeymoon concessions is contracted through Canada, but the water is controlled by the national park, correct? So the boat that the gentleman was talking about that transports the folks to the beach, are they required to have a CUA?
Yes, sir, they are required.
Do they have a CUA?
No.
They don't have a current CUA right now.
So they-
If that's true.
I'm sorry.
Wait, Leonard. The second question, requirement, anyone understand? The second question required to the CUAs. The boat, I am familiar with it, they carry more than 6 passengers. National Park always looks at safety. So that's another concern I had about that particular boat that goes into Honeymoon Beach.
Yeah,
It's a dinghy with probably like a 50 horsepower on it. 6 people is overloaded already, must escape people.
So we will, we are not happy with the dinghy. We are not happy with the concession there. We've made that very clear. We have been in talks, with this team. The biggest thing that we're worried about is the risk mitigation. We have many calls. It seems like every weekend, we've had a call over there, pretty significant calls. We did work with their team. Their team now is providing more security that can help with emergency situations on the weekends. My understanding is the first weekend that happened, but as far as the dinghy, we're not happy with the dinghy because the dinghy comes in to where people swim. And we have enforced that. My understanding, we have issued citations for certain activities. We are aware, we're not happy with that as well, and we have been working with this team.
So you're gonna let them continue without a COA? It's pretty much what you're saying, because they've been operating for months now, right? So we're gonna let them continue with a COA and the other boats.
It's my understanding in the
required to have their COA?
RUE portion, we have to provide them waterway access. And where we gave them the waterway access, that dock is no longer working. And so the only way we can give them waterway access is through the beach right there, is my understanding of why we haven't, because it's already built into their legal agreement.
I wanted to shut that concession down, because we have no financial interest in it. But I was under the impression, apparently incorrectly, that this was something that was positive for the local community. So based on what I'm hearing today, I think I know what my decision needs to be on that concession.
Well, I don't know if people are saying that it's not a positive thing. They're saying that they don't like the fact that the taxi cab drivers are not also able to utilize it.
Well, there's a liability issue. Yeah,
Sure.
I think in light of what I'm hearing, that I probably need to have a discussion with Seville.
I like Honeymoon. I think it's great. I think it's great. I think it's great that they cleaned up the beach. I think it's great
Well, I think
that
she does a great
there's
job.
activity there and it's not just a dead beach.
Yeah.
It's much better than what's happening at Canil.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good job, but if it's a big liability issue.
Well, the liability is the dinghy, the liability isn't necessarily.
I mean, people having recreation's a liability, and that's what happens at the park, and that's what happens at beaches, and that's what happens when you have concessions. So there is a liability issue when you have people. Cutting off the people isn't the solution.
So we're gonna have two more questions, sir, in the front, and then sir.
I'm gonna stand up this time. What I'm going to say, I believe, affects every person in here. I was born in St. John, right across the street there, 87 years ago. I taught in the school for 28 years. I taught in St. John for 33, but 28 in the school year. It hurts me immensely. We in St. John had the best softball team in the Virgin Islands. Women and men, for years. We don't have a field now. Now we'll go to the park. Somebody said, we need Friends of St. John. We have Friends of the Park. For years, the government has been trying to get 4 miles out of those places. An ideal area for everything that the community needs. School, recreation grounds, community center, everything right 4 miles out of Cruz Bay. For years, the park has been trying, the government has been trying to get it. So far, they haven't gotten it. You see what happened to our field? You can even walk around the field now. Every foot of it is almost safe now. With trailers. Those trailers should have been out in that place already. And the field should have been there that it could still be used. Because somebody just will tell me tonight it's about 6 or 7 years those trailers going to be here. Concrete and everything. It hurts me. I was born here, I grew up here, I used to play ball. But the park didn't cooperate. The friends of the park couldn't get that piece of land with that ideal for everything. And I'm wondering why. Why is it that the park couldn't get that piece of land?
So that piece of the park there,
Katrina Bird
is actually for $1 leased back to the government, Department of Recreation. And the Department of Recreation, in consultation with the park, makes those decisions, but
Wrong location.
I'm sorry?
It's the wrong location. He's speaking of this park that
Oh, I apologize. Okay, I thought you meant the
No,
park by
no,
the
the park
headquarters.
over here.
Oh, my
Where
apologies.
they have relocated or whatever you call it. Monument or whatever you call it. Took up the whole field. So we don't have a field in St. John.
So what are you asking for, sir? What is your suggestion?
From 3.5 to 4 miles in Katrinaburg on the level, there is it used to be a garden once, from the 40s somewhere. But it is ideal for community, everything. It has enough space there for schools, everything. No, beyond that, beyond the gas station. Right at the end of the level. The whole bottom and then the government wanted.
HR 53 is what he's referring to.
But for years, the government been trying to get it for community service. And for some reason, they couldn't get it. Why? I told them one time in a meeting that these same children that they are depriving an education by having to put a school there, these same children will come back who really want to be breaking in your houses and shooting up and things like that because we deprive them of an education. So there ain't no reason why the park couldn't not lease them, but give the government that piece of land. Since the park owns more than 2/3 of the land. Now, I'm a friend of the park, but I'm more a friend of St. John. I was born here. I taught here.
I don't know the piece of land, but we are up for it. We
This
just,
is Katrinaburg.
that's the first I've heard of it, but.
No. It's the same area plan that I have discussed in reference to getting to school, what he's talking about.
Oh, okay, I apologize. Yes, I know the parcel you're talking about.
I still don't understand why.
Sir?
The back of Canelbe at the park. I can't believe that the national park would allow these people to run a dinghy with the excuse that they have to give them access to this restaurant and bar. When they're sitting there now, when they're standing there now and telling us that this motorized dinghy go into the beach to this part to drop people in a swimming area where they wouldn't even allow people to bring a surfboard in Trombay and that kind of stuff. And because this is Canilbe, they will allow that. To come in there with a motorized dinghy within a swimming area to drop people. This is concession in Canilbe. Only because it's Canilbe it can happen. As locals, when we sit there and we see this kind of stuff, it really bothers us.
And you had a question?
Yeah, I think something immediate that the people of St. John would really appreciate, and that you have direct control over, would be some kind of road access into Honeymoon, and if that means making a safe route, I think that you have the resources to provide that. Another thing that I think would make the people of St. John very happy is just some effort to clean up the debris. And because even when you're coming by on a boat along the North Shore or at the Canal Bay Overlook, it's heartbreaking every time we see it. So, and I think even if there's no plan to rebuild, just to have that cleanup effort and pick up that debris is something that you have control over. And I know that you don't want to invest money because if you're not going to get a return on it, but that would mean a lot to us if you did that.
Yes?
Concerning the employment situation, I went to the EDA meeting many years ago because in the past, the way Camille worked is they had a large number of employees that were full-time all year round that had full benefits, pensions, and health insurance. When this gentleman's outfit came, they came up with a new plan. Instead of having full-time employees, they had part-time employees without the benefits, and they were seasonal, and they got put on unemployment compensation every year for up to 2 months and a little bit more. That caused all the local businesses that I'm a bookkeeper for, that were paying zero for unemployment compensation, we started having to pay for Keneal's unemployment compensation for their full-time employees. And when I went to the EDC meeting and said, okay, so the reason why you're getting benefits is because you have 400 employees, full-time employees, but you don't. And the explanation I got is that they average out to being the right number of employees. It's like, no, there is a federal definition of what a full-time employee is, and it's not somebody that goes on unemployment for 2 months every year. This man has also taught Frenchman's Reef how to do this, and a couple other hotels that have learned how to do this. So now the impact on our local businesses is we are now paying hundreds of dollars, and the VI government owes the federal unemployment insurance I don't know how many millions, because that's costing me $175 per employee a year for a penalty against the debt that they've never paid. And this is the person that's you're telling me that we need this employment. My question is, since you have not been a hotel for the past year, you would not be eligible for EDC benefits, and therefore you need to pay your property tax bill.
Property is owned by the US government.
I want to say
That's
something.
not true.
I want to say something.
You have a property tax.
Yes.
Listen, I used to work on Hillbit, and I look forward to working 10 months and get 2 months off with pay. So, and everybody in here who used to work on Hill used to look forward to it, at least to my knowledge. Okay, that's it, to my knowledge. I used to look forward to it. And a lot of people in there, Teresa, let me finish.
Okay, can everyone was gracious to one another? So please let him say what he wants
I was
to
a
say.
shop steward with Teresa for quite a few years, and worked on Hillbit a whole lot of years. And yes, we were treated like crap some of the time, but it wasn't easy. And employees was treated bad, yes. I mean, it's wherever you go. I'm not defending Gary, I'm not defending Canada, so don't take it as that.
That's what you
But
did.
that's what you But like I said, I used to look forward to getting those 2 months out. I was a full-time employee, even though I was laid off for 2 months. And everybody who was full-time still get their benefits as they were getting, and they were considered as full-time. They have the reasons for doing it, that's them. But I personally had like getting those 2 months off. They said they have to do what they have to do. I don't know what on the book, I don't know the reason, I could only go by what they said. But I was one of the people, and a lot of people in here who said that yes, Gary deserves a lot of criticism for how employees was treated. But guess what? Moving forward, I'm sure to a certain extent we could control how they treat employees out there. I want to see Canada be open, not for me, but for the people, the younger generation who come in and the money we're bringing, the revenue, for the tourists out of our custom to come here. And we sit in here criticizing all the things that bad happened in the past is not going to fix it. And a lot of people who criticize they never walk Canil Bay are dead. And so all of them who criticize they never walk Canil Bay, they need to go and walk someplace instead of criticizing something what I hear on the street. My personal experience, I go to work, I do my job, and I leave. Some people do crap, and you come down on them, people bad. And I'm telling you, as a person who work there and as a shop steward, to different employees, when they run into stuff. You understand? Guess what? I am my own man, you know. I am not nobody in here, man. Everybody sit and say what they want. No one's saying what I
Please, you have to have respect for one another, please.
You understand? When I work there, the employees should have been treated better. Yes, but like I said, moving forward, we can, and I'm sure we can fix that. And I listen to this man here telling you all this nonsense. He never worked on Hillbit. He never worked on Hillbit. I work in which one I work with, like I said, we ain't living nobody in here. So I listen to all the people who work on Hillbit are the people who could tell you the most what went on from what didn't went on. What we had liked from what we didn't like. And like I said, we are here because of quite a few reasons. But I think Canada should reopen to put people back to work so tourists can have a place so the government can make money.
Excuse me, okay, so I don't know if Randy or Gary have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just in closing.
This could go on all night.
I do want to take a point to apologize to Lorelei and Pam. You're right, you did send me that list and I failed to come through on that list. So my apologies, but I will come through on the next one.
Typical time for concession? Sorry? Typical time to put something out to bid? We've heard a number of possibly as much as 10 years. Is that accurate?
So specific with this situation, it is a RUE.
A lease agreement.
A lease agreement. A lease agreement and could take up to 10 years. Right now, though, the secretary himself and the deputy secretary are having the highest level conversations. Before I came to this meeting, there were 5 lawyers, secretary, office personnel, National Park Service director, deputy director, all talking about Camille Bay and wanting to get something moving forward. And so they are aggressive in wanting to make sure that that something comes back over there. What that is, I don't know. I'm not in those deep conversations with the attorney portion, but I'm telling you, your Secretary of the Interior is hot on this.
So,
the Secretary of the
can we,
Interior.
we're letting people, excuse me. Everyone can jump in, and if I allow everyone to jump in, that's not fair, okay? So you're gonna have to hold with your comments until we leave. I've asked Gary to make a closing statement, and then we're gonna close out.
One comment to your point. I have never said to anybody, and I've been on record with both the Rockefeller family and the National Park, I have no desire to build 300 units. And all those things, I haven't looked at your list, you just gave it to me. None of those things that I saw or you discussed are outside of the realm of reasonableness. My point on the RUA is that it's an existing document, and I know that if it's done, we can get to a happy place very quickly. All this other stuff is gonna take forever to get done. And my view was, time is of the essence in getting people back to work and getting Camille back up and running. But I've never said to anyone that there's nothing, that nothing is negotiable, or non-negotiable.
So is there anything you'd like to say in closing, and then I'll close this out?
I think that's it. I hear everybody. I'm sorry that, you know, for sins we've committed in the past, you know, it's a business. You know, I've got other businesses I run. I try to do my best. I've talked to the employees. I'm, you know, many of the people I talked to, I was frankly, you know, heartbroken with the stories I got. But, you know, it's sometimes very difficult.
So, we're gonna close out. I just want you all to know that I am scheduled to have a discussion with Bob Vogel, who is the regional director. I'm also scheduled to have a discussion with Secretary Sinke, who came into Congress with me. We were classmates, so we were supposed to have a discussion about what are their proposal. And I will let the people of the Virgin Islands know particularly St. John, what those proposals are. I want to thank everybody for their comments and for their input in this process. I hope that hearing from the individuals that are here, being able to share your ideas and your thoughts have been helpful as well to everyone involved. Thank you for this document. There's also always my office. People have my email address. If you'd like me to give you my email address, that you can share your additional thoughts, ideas, comments. I'm happy to receive those as well.
Can we just ask one thing when you go back to the table to negotiate or you engage with them, that you take what it is that we spoke about, our concerns, our suggestions, our questions in regards to renewing the deal that they have. Can you at least bring that to the table when you go back to the
As
table?
I said, I will report back to you all what those conversations are. I will take your information. I don't think I'm saying anything that I didn't just say. That I will take that information, the information that you share with me, and I will use that. And I will make a decision. It may not be the decision that you like. And then you, as individuals, will have to decide what you think about that decision that I made. That's called leadership, because not everybody in this room agrees. So not everyone is going to agree. Can you explain, excuse me, this is my meeting and you're finished. So thank you all, good night.